Hi, this is Meredith Lego, and I am doing a series of channeled teachings from Ascended Master Hilarion on the concept of Ascension science. And I have been able to connect energetically with this Ascended Master through quantum entanglement. And basically, he is, even though he's not of this dimensional plane, I'm being able to basically pick up wisdom from him behind the veil. In the last several videos I've done, it's been on the whole concept of how the reincarnational process works, like what happens in between reincarnations or between lives, and then what we go through in sort of selecting the next life path. Now, on the last video, he got into the fact that there's a certain council that we might be working with, and certainly work with guides who are more in our lives on kind of a more constant basis. But the council is a group that we might be working with and might be watching over us, but we don't certainly interact with them much, if not, maybe when we kind of exit a particular life. And in the next session, I wanted to ask Hilarion, who are these guides? How are the guides selected? Why did I ask them to be my guides, and why did they agree? So I was curious about that. So Hilarion goes on to say that your guides are peers in your discipleship process to ascension as a chela under the master teacher. So he obviously is a master teacher, sort of teaching different beings to sort of evolve their consciousness. And what he's saying is that you're part of this discipleship process, which means, kind of sounds like a school, but it sounds like sort of a level of kind of moving through that process. And you're in this discipleship process to ascension as a chela. And he described to me that chela basically refers to like a spiritual student. So it's really nothing more than saying you're a student under a master teacher. While your life appears long to you, it is a short period in the dimension with no time and space. Your role is equally a learning experience for your guides as it is for you, for they too have goals and challenges to work on as guides. You two will serve as a guide for one of them. So in essence, you are practicing on each other. That was pretty interesting to me, because I thought maybe guides were guides because they'd sort of, like graduated from having to reincarnate. But essentially what he's saying is that, no, actually you kind of support each other through this incarnational process. Then I asked, what can I do to help my guides and master teacher? Just kind of curious about that. And he said, understanding and knowing their existence is the first step. Listen to their signs. Help them help you by going with the flow and following your passion and feelings each and every moment of each day. Your guides are helping your higher self execute a lesson plan you defined before incarnation. And so one of the things that I keep getting reinforced by Hilarion is that your higher self ultimately, wanted to go into this incarnation sort of trying to execute a learning plan. And when you get into life, not only, you come in and you have 4 basic bodies. You have a physical body, an emotional body, a mental body, and an etheric body. And you have a connection or ability to connect with your higher self. But much of a very strong piece of your reality is your ego and your personality. And even if your higher self wants to go in a particular direction, you have the free will. I mean, your ego and your personality has the free will basically to kind of go in that direction or go in a completely different direction, which is okay because it creates another situation for experience and for learning. But let's say if it doesn't quite match up to the direction your higher self was hoping for, you might ultimately find yourself repeating that experience, but just in another life, or maybe at some point in the future. And so he's also reinforced that you can really tune into what it is that your higher self and ultimately your guides are trying to guide you into by simply tuning into your feelings. And the best way to understand that is by really following those feelings that bring you the greatest joy and the greatest passion in each and every moment. So if your energy is supercharged and you're like, yeah, I want to go do this thing, or, I feel great love over here and I'm really excited about doing this. If you've got a supercharged energy, that's likely your higher self saying, okay, point yourself there. This is like whatever makes you happy, whatever makes Meredith happy. That's basically your higher self. Now, on the other hand, if you find yourself in situations where you feel like your energy is being drained around doing something, it's probably not as much in alignment. So it's really important to tune into those feelings as you're kind of going throughout your day and your life. He goes on to say that now that you have awareness and ask for help from your spiritual team, simply allow the energy and universe to unfold before you. Let go of the need to control the outcome. This is really key and very hard to do, obviously. I'm a type A personality, so the idea of not controlling my personality is certainly a lesson that I'm working on in this life. I like to essentially sort of plan for all the possible or potential outcomes that could come up into the future. And that's me thinking that I'm being smart, but also I'm not as good at sort of just letting go and seeing what happens in life and just going with the flow. So essentially, he's saying, let go of the need to control the outcome. This is one of your biggest lessons and challenges. So he's kind of affirming to me personally that I have to work on that. Controlling your direction implies fear and a lack of belief the universe will provide you with what you need the most that is in your best and highest good for the long term. And when he said that, I was actually guided to put long term in quotes. And long term might, we can kind of think about that long term in our life. But in reality, the way or the feeling that I sensed when that word was coming in is long term, as in many, many, many lives. So if we've been at this for a very long time, ultimately what we're trying to do is satisfy some lessons or learnings that ultimately will benefit us for kind of set us up for what can ultimately be a very long experience of multiple incarnations. And so sometimes if our ego personality sort of wants to take over a situation, we ultimately might be hamstringing ourselves and might set ourselves up to experience or have to experience that in the long term, which means many, many more lives. So that's the idea or the importance of sort of listening to your higher self and where it wants to go. So what he says is that in the short-term gratifications of control are meaningless when they undo a lesson that is a long-term gain. Even if the short term is not pleasant and you simply are trying to turn it around. So case in point, let's just say that you have like an individual who is who has to make a decision, and ultimately they fear making that decision because it's quite uncomfortable and it's going to sort of change their life drastically in a significant way. Let's just say moving to a different city or quitting a job and taking another job. So there's a lot of sort of risk in doing that. And if you don't necessarily know where your next step is going to be, it can be a little nerve-wracking walking into that situation. But maybe that was necessary so that in the next situation you could satisfy a certain learning plan and or be in a position to meet with somebody who's ultimately going to take you to the next level to satisfy a learning plan. Or maybe you're supposed to meet somebody that helps them satisfy something. So that's the idea that ultimately, if you're trying to control your feelings of saying this, I think I should do this because my gut's telling me, but I'm scared. You're like, I really don't want to because it's going to create so much change in my life and I hate change. Ultimately, you could be undoing what was really one of the lesson plans that your higher self wanted to accomplish. And, what he's saying is that that's great. That's a short-term gratification, but it's sort of meaningless because you're undoing lessons that could be a long-term gain for you in the long run. He goes on to say that Manifest the future you want with your intentions, thoughts, and energies. Then act upon your feelings to ground your intention into the physical world. Act upon what brings you joy in each now moment. So essentially, if we kind of think about time, and I think I talked about this in the timeline video a couple videos back, maybe in I think it was like in lesson 1 or lesson 2. We essentially are going through life, and we sort of, our consciousness is entering into a frame of reality, but each frame of reality is sort of one snapshot or one picture in time. And the reason that's done is that essentially our vibration can tap into any timeline. So anytime you're kind of going through life, there's many decisions that you can make in terms of a direction that you go down. And each one of them can take you to very many other scenarios of different directions in your life. So right now I can sit here and talk, or I can immediately turn this video off and like go run around the neighborhood. And that could cause me to like have a car run into me because it's night and it's dark outside. So there's all these potential scenarios that can go on in the next hour. And I'm sort of living in one now moment. Now, my consciousness is essentially plopping itself into reality of this frame, this now moment. And depending upon the vibrational rate of my, depending upon my intentions as well as my vibrational rate, will dictate sort of the next frame that I go down into the future. So he's basically saying, look, you want to act upon what brings you joy in each now moment. So each frame of your reality, almost like the movie frames that used to spin on the spool at the movie theaters. Like each moment is a frame, and your consciousness is plopping into each frame, and you want to act upon whatever is going to bring you joy in each of those picture frames. He says that the universe will respond back now more than ever before in recent history. He doesn't get into why that is, but I can tell you because we're sort of at this point in our evolution of humanity, as well as the placement of Earth in the universe, where we're just getting hit with more photonic gamma rays. So we're sort of in a position of being able to sort of evolve our consciousness faster at this particular point in history. Your guides help the process as well. Let them do their job, for it serves you. So don't fight those feelings. And I know I catch myself having feelings, and I catch my ego knowingly trying to counter those feelings. And when it happens, I'm always like, okay, I know this is my higher self talking to me, but I know my ego over here is like freaking out about this. I have a choice right now. Which direction am I going to go? And oftentimes I'm beginning to learn, and to try and follow more of my higher self and what my guides want me to do. That means overcoming a whole series of fear programming that, I had either due to past life experiences or just, programming in terms of growing up. But essentially that's what I am personally working on. And so what he's saying, look, you've got this whole team supporting you. Just let them do their job, because it's ultimately going to serve you in the long run. Then I asked, well, did I ever have a past life with any of my guides? And he said, yes. And there will be future lives. You are serving each other as student fellows in a class. It's like a class project, which I thought was a pretty interesting analogy. So that hopefully gives you a little idea about guides and the spiritual team, I guess you could say, who's in the background sort of helping us go through life. I've had some interesting perspective that they could also be sort of observing us through kind of like a holographic simulation. So if we're in a holographic universe, and we're able to sort of manipulate our reality based upon our thought. And I've also talked about the fact, not only from Hilarion, but from what I've been able to experience through psychic sensitivities, that we could also be essentially in a simulation. This is probably, the guides could probably be sort of operators that are helping to monitor our involvement in this holographic simulation. So just know that you're always sort of being watched is the only way that I could put it. But, there's a team there, and they're there to help you. So leverage them and use them, and always good to at least acknowledge their awareness. That's what I've started to do. And as I've started to acknowledge their awareness, what I've found is that I've received a lot more communications and sort of synchronicities coming at me. So, for example, I'll know to just I'll just suddenly have the urge to look at the clock, and it'll be like 11:11 or 22:22 or 33:33. There was one week in a row where I was literally prompted to wake up at 44:44, like literally every day that week. And it wasn't because I like to wake up that time or it's a normal time for me to wake up, because trust me, I hate it getting up early like that. But in this particular case, something would prompt me to wake up right at that time. So those are sort of signals of guides tuning into you, and those are good times to realize that a connection is being made, and try to pursue that. Or they could just be communicating to you about being alert about something going on. So I've certainly really enjoyed that communication and have continued it. So with that, I hope that you've learned something from this video. And if you like the content, I encourage you, if you're not already, to subscribe to the channel, and then also sign up for notifications so you get alerts when I post more videos. Hope you have a great evening. Thanks. Bye.